So just check in with yourself and see if after just a few short minutes of meditation, it doesn't feel that you're a little bit more landed here, a little bit more present. Taking a little break from the mind's activity, if you were able to get a moment or two of that. So what I wanted to talk about today, again, is how do we do this? How do we do this current situation well? And the first thing I want to talk about is I'm going to talk for a bit, and then I'm going to open up the floor, and hopefully you all will write in some questions and I can speak to whatever is there for you. But I'll address a few topics that I think are necessary right now. One is to acknowledge that what we're living in is uncertainty. I think you know all that. But what we do as human beings with uncertainty is we fill it in. We fill it in with a narrative of something we can know. Some people fill it in with it's all going to work out. And if you're going to choose a narrative, you might as well choose that one, right? Other people fill it in with what ifs that are catastrophes, dystopian nightmares, and so on. But here's the truth, which is we don't know. We don't know. This is a time of not knowing. And we have to acknowledge that not knowing comes with fear. It comes with anxiety. Our way of being in this world is to know, is to make plans. We can count on a future until we can't. So what we have here is a time of real life not knowing. We don't know when this will clear up. It will change again, that we know. But we want to be really, really careful in our own mind that we don't fill in what is an I don't know with any kind of narrative. And when we can live in, I don't know, I have this moment. I have this moment. That's what I have. When we can get comfortable in that space, then we are really in a place of strength. Then we are really in a place of spiritual and emotional resilience. So the first thing is to really be mindful of your own mind and not jumping in with anything other than what's true right here. And in this not knowing, we want to be really gentle with ourselves, really compassionate. This is definitely not a time for the inner critic. This is a time to banish the inner critic, right? There's no right way to do this time that we're in. We need to acknowledge the anxiety, the vast change that we're experiencing in this not knowing, right? We don't need to shame that away or, again, create an imaginary story where it's going to all resolve in a week or there's something wrong with being afraid. We want to be kind to whatever is arising within us during this time. And for most of us, it really shifts from moment to moment. And so that has to be okay too. So acknowledging right now is all that we can know. Everything else is a projection. And whatever comes in this right now, that has to be okay. And that has to be true also for those that we're living with in very tight settings right now, that we have to really open up our bandwidth of patience and compassion. The shoulds have to be thrown out the window right now. And whatever is arising, there has to be space for that, particularly at this time. And the most important thing really that we can do is to drop out of future, drop out of past. This is an incredible opportunity to practice the Buddhist path. This is it. We are walking this together because we cannot be sure of a future. And the past that we came from is not really applicable anymore. So we have to stay right now in this breath, this moment. We cannot run off in future ideation. And what's really amazing though, is that when we stay right here, we're okay right here. In this moment, we've eaten enough. We hopefully are feeling okay. It's a different story if we're not, if we're sick. But if we're here and we're okay, then this moment is okay, right? Fear is about the future. If we're living in fear, we're not living in now. We've lost now. We've lost ourselves into thoughts. In this moment, which is the only moment we have, we're okay. And we need to keep coming back to that, to stay fiercely rooted in right now. Am I okay? And so this is a practice that comes with the most advanced spiritual practice. This is, we're having the opportunity right now to practice enlightenment in a sense. So I'll come back to that in a little bit. But another thing I wanted to say in a very practical way is that we also have to be mindful about what we're putting into our consciousness at this moment. If there are people around us who are particularly terrified, or if we feel maybe we are kind of ODing on MSNBC, or we are just plugging in and plugging in and plugging in and noticing that it's just upping and upping and upping our level of anxiety. You know, the cortisol levels in our body, the stress hormones are going through the roof. Well, the wise person there would say, if I'm ingesting a poison, then can I just do it less? If I have to know what's going on, maybe I watch 1 hour at night, or maybe I don't check in all day, progress on virus. It's really important that we sort of limit our addiction. And of course, the addiction comes from a desire to find out something good. But we have to be very careful with what we're putting in, because fear is contagious. As contagious as COVID is, so is fear. And so we're feeding on it. And we can take charge of what we're putting in our own consciousness. And we need to, just like we need to get out for that walk, as long as we're allowed to, we need to move. We need to move the body. We also need to be very mindful about what we are putting in our consciousness. And that's different for all of us. Another thing that I wanted to just touch on is, who do we want to be through this challenge becomes a really important question. Whether we're parents or we're friends or we're leaders in our community, or whatever role it is that we're playing. How do we want to walk through this? Because it will pass. It will become something else. So setting every day an intention, setting every day with an intention of, what do I want to offer the people in my life at this time? What values do I want to manifest during this time? We have this incredible war, a war with a virus, in which to walk our walk. This is the time. It may be the only time like this during our lifetimes. And again, it is an opportunity to be that person, be our best self, be our strength, be our dig deep strength, and to offer that. You know, as parents, we have to offer that. We have to be that. But as parents, and I'll digress for a moment over to parenting, how we walk through this with our children now will forever shape them. It will have a lot to do with how they meet adversity in their lives, and how we walk through this for them will literally teach them resilience. We'll teach them how to get comfortable in the uncomfortable. And that's something that we all need to learn. So whether we're parents or we're not parents, this question of who do we want to be in all of this really is front and center right now. And it also gives us something to do. You know, part of what makes this such a challenging time is the waiting and not having really a sense of what action we can take. But being that person of integrity, of strength, of ground right now is an action that we can take, right? And during this time, we have to, how shall I put this? Remember what really matters. During this time, when everything is crumbling around us in terms of the external structure, we have to come back to what doesn't crumble. So we come back to people, we come back to love, we come back to our relationship, service, we come back to the best of us. You know, when we can't fill our days with all of our usual distractions and our entertainments and our usual ways of being, we return to our essential nature. We reach out to friends. We take a walk in nature as long as we can. We remember silence. When the external is removed, we have vast opportunity to go within, to remember that we ourselves are a destination. We return to friendship, love, nature, the simplicity of being, and we return to ourselves. You know, this is a time where, if any of you know the serenity prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. This is the practice. And in that moment when we cannot control what's happening, the illusion of control has been removed, we return to what's always here. We return to this simplicity and this essence of ourselves, that presence that maybe you touched in the meditation of just being. And so what I'm repeating over and over again is this word opportunity. I'm hearing myself say it over and over again. And this really is an opportunity. It's an opportunity filled with suffering, no question about it. But when there is adversity, we are forced to go deeper. We are forced to find out what really matters, to find our own uncrumbleable, our own what doesn't go away. When all the plans and all the fun and entertainment stops, what doesn't go away? So there is something underneath all the thinking and all the situation that remains well. And that is our task now, to find that space. We do that by simply breathing. We can access it just through simple breath, dropping out of all of the thinking, of all of the worrying, and finding the body breathing itself. We are a breath away from that place of stillness, of all okay, paradoxically, of all okay. So, there's a wonderful quote: when the ego weeps for what it has lost, the spirit rejoices for what it has found. And this is an opportunity to meet a part of ourselves and to be that part of ourselves for those in our lives that will never go away once this is done. Once we've tapped into that and found this inner calm, inner strength, solidity inside ourselves. Once we know that place and have a portal into it, we don't ever lose it. So I'm encouraging you during this time to stay in the present moment, to be mindful of what you're ingesting, to be kind with yourself, and deeply, deeply patient with those around you, and to stay in touch very, very much as best you can with this deep presence within you that is under all of this fear. And I just want to say one last thing about relationship during this, as we are, many of us, on top of each other, no matter how big our space is, and that there may be new rules that we have to write for marriages and partnerships during this time. And we lead with kindness. We lead with kindness. We are being asked to step up now to be the best of ourselves. And so the little irritations and things that might at another time inspire us to say whatever we need to say, perhaps now we can err on the side of being generous, that everyone is doing the best that they can. And that is an incredible sense of strength that we gain by knowing that we are being our best self. So I think I'm going to stop there because that's a lot. And I'd love to open it up to anything that you all want to share, or particular questions, or what's helping you, since this is a collective experiment. But I hope that you've walked away a little bit with a sense of the opportunity for spiritual and human growth that this time allows us. So I'm going to stop there for now. And I have my chat open, so I welcome any comments or questions. One thing, I'll fill the time as I wait for them, but as much as I've talked over the last 3 or 4 years since my last book, which is The Power of Off, which has to do with living mindfully with technology, and I talk a lot about the disconnection that technology creates, but now is a time to be incredibly grateful for what technology can offer us and to make use of it. We don't have to walk through this alone, remarkably. And so it's funny to be here now talking about the miracle of being able to come together during this time. And boy, am I using it. As a parent, I'm having Zoom play dates. I'm meeting friends for coffee dates. We're doing the same thing. We're having panel discussions. So I also encourage you to use it, right? Don't do this alone. Do not do this alone. Lean on each other, be with each other. The best of the human being comes out in times of struggle. We are doing that. It's remarkable, and it will stay with us. And I see a question from Tanaz. As much as it is encouraged to be understanding and kind to one another, what is your advice on how to best deal with coworkers who don't subscribe to that idea, especially during a crisis? Such a good question. It's all well and good to say, right, in our own consciousness, but what happens when we meet it in a different consciousness? So real compassion, right, is to walk our walk regardless, right? So we extend a certain amount of compassion for the other is doing the best that they can, even if it's unpleasant, their best. So we suspend judgment that they should be another way, right? And we continue to be who we want to be with their panic or their sharpness or whatever it is that might be coming up. Our responsibility is to be who we want to be, so that when we go to bed at night, we are happy with that person. And how we meet people who are not living in that space is the real challenge of who do we want to be with those that it's not easy to be that way with, right? The other thing that we can do is we can say out loud to someone who is behaving in that way out of fear, probably, during this time, I see that you seem stressed, or so if there's anything that I can do to help you with that, right? We point at the behavior we're seeing in a kind way rather than react to it. So that's always an option too. We go right at the person suffering, if you will, which often will calm them down. If we get reactive, then we end up down the rabbit hole with them. Does that make sense? So, relationships during this time are such an opportunity to practice. They really are an opportunity to practice. And one of the things that I talk to parents a lot about, and also people who are in couples and living with other people, is that we have to take time away to replenish ourselves, right? Put your own oxygen mask on first. If you live in a very small place, perhaps that's in the bathroom, it doesn't matter. But we really have to be mindful of nourishing ourselves, getting out for that walk, getting the 10 minutes of meditation a day, which I highly recommend. Just a time to drop out of the mind and into the body, into the breath. Use apps such as Headspace and those kinds of things if that helps you. But even though we're living together, we need to be incredibly vigilant about our own well-being, time away from our kids. If we have to give our kids the Subway Surfer app for 12 hours, if that's what we need to do for today, that's okay, right? Right now, it's about being the good enough parent. It's not about being the perfect parent. Every day is not, a cornucopia of fun and learning necessarily. it's good enough. And the most important thing that we can offer, as I was alluding to before, is our kindness and our solidity, right? That we can be comfortable in the uncomfortable, because there will be other times in our lives where other things go wrong. You know, people get sick, or we lose things that we think we can't do without. So finding this ground now, here's the practice time. It's not a dress rehearsal this time. But that's more important to offer the little ones in our presence, or our spouses, or our partners, or our friends, than activities. So that's an important time. You know, another thing for those who are living through this alone, I really want to repeat what I said before, which is use technology, right? This is a time to reach out and to ask for help, to acknowledge if it's loneliness, if it's isolation, to be together in newfound ways. So I'm looking back to see here. Okay, I'm glad that was helpful. And I'm hoping that more people will have questions or comments about what gets hard for you at home. Is it the people you're living with? Is it just knowing what to do with your mind? Is it fear? And a good question too we can ask, right, is how to be of service. Is there a way to be of service? If we are someone who can help in the medical arena, if we have a 3D printer, if we can sew, all these things, as crazy as it is, bring us together and give us a sense that we're helping, right? So that is something that really can be very grounding, to feel like we're doing something in this vast uncertainty. Walking the walk in uncertainty, though, is the thing. Not a moment out into the future, not back into the past, just this. And when our mind wants to go off on its run into all sorts of places, we usher it back. We usher it back to, am I okay right here? And we keep doing that. Like in a meditation, we do that over and over and over again. If we're locked in fear, we're not in the present moment. And so I'm hoping that as we walk through this time together, we can lean on each other and we can be the people we want to be. We will look back at this and we will wonder, who was I during that? Was I kind? Was I generous? Was I patient? Did I find that stillness, that silence inside myself in the midst of the noise? This will forever change us. So let's use that. Let's use that. Let's use this as an opportunity. And if there's nothing else, I think that's a lot, and that's enough for today. But I'll leave this line open. I'm here, and I will be here if anybody wants to join, wants to ask a question. I highly encourage making the space for meditation during this time. It is our refuge. It is our refuge. And to find, if you have any kind of spiritual practice, even if it's just kindness, which is a spiritual practice, that we practice it now. And so I will leave this open until 1 o'clock for another 15 minutes. And if somebody wants to ask a private question at another point, okay. Can you recommend, this is from Vivian, can you recommend any meditation recordings? So I have a number of recordings free on iTunes that are about 10 minutes each, similar to what we did this earlier. There's also, so you can find that under Nancy Colier. Also on my website, nancycolier.com, I have a lot of information. There's a wonderful teacher that I love, well, actually my teacher, Adyashanti, which is it's a non-dual name. It comes from a tradition, but Adyashanti, Adyashanti. I'll write it right here in our technological playhouse. Adyashanti, yeah. And he has lots of wonderful meditations. And another teacher, Tara Brach, B-R-A-C-H, has wonderful meditations. We can simply also sit quietly in silence and follow the breath. When the mind goes wild, we come back to the next breath. It's a very basic mindfulness practice, right? We just stay rooted in the breath. That's also surprisingly powerful. If we do 10 minutes of just following, just noticing the breath, mind goes away, come back. If we do that 10 minutes every day, we start to see our life change in ways that are profound. Time expands. And what happens is that we start to see our thoughts as something separate from us. So our thoughts of fear, our thoughts of what if, catastrophizing, all of that, there starts to be one who sees that, and then the thoughts themselves. In January of next year, I have a book coming out on, it's called Can't Stop Thinking, but it is about our learning how to separate ourselves from thoughts, and in this moment, thoughts of fear. So just very simply following the breath, doing a body scan, anything that invites us out of thinking is going to change our relationship with fear. Because essentially that's what meditation and mindfulness is doing. The fear may still arise, but our relationship with it changes. So we're not identified with it. We're not inside the fear. We are seeing the fear. We may feel the fear, but there is still an awareness, a safe distance, if you will, from the arising of fear. So there's a place that's not afraid that can be with the fear. It's like a safe shore. And that's what meditation teaches us, to not be so attached and identified with our thoughts and our fears and all that arises moment to moment to moment within us. We get caught, of course, until we don't. But meditation during this time is necessary. So thank you for the question. And again, there are all these technological, Calm is one app, Headspace is another app. There are many now. Those are two I know of that are very good. And they offer all different lengths of meditations and all different kinds. Some people respond to mantra, to repeating something over and over. Some people respond to music. Some people respond to concentration practice. like on a candle or a breath, but you can play around. And this is an opportunity as well, that word again, to learn something new. You know, how many times have we all said, oh, I wish I had a moment to just get off the hamster wheel and stop and pause in my life. I hear that in my office as a therapist all day long. If I could just have a moment to pause and stop. Well, it's interesting how we don't get to choose the reason that we get off the wheel, do we? This is that moment too. So if meditation or some other thing, I don't know, macrame, I don't know, or to learn a language, not to be light in all of this, but here is a time. We have that pause. Even those of us working, we're at home. So we can also look at this as an opportunity to have that stop, if you will. It's a forced stop, as they often come, but to use it as that as well. And, you know, as long as we can go outside, right? As I said before, just like meditation, nature is healing. How do you suggest parents dealing with distance learning and their own remote work juggle both? Oh my goodness, you must have read my emails with my daughter's teacher this morning. I think I phrased it just like that. How would you manage that? I spoke with a number of teachers, and what they have encouraged me to do is to set our children up and to let them learn on their own once we get them in front. Depends on how old your child is, but that has been encouraged in all of the learning formats that I've been involved in. We just need to get them set up so they can work the technology. The other thing to say is, if they're too young, or if that's not possible, I'm going to give you, maybe don't tell your teacher, but a bit of a permission slip to do the best you can. If your child doesn't have the full education in the next week that they would have if they had been in a classroom with a teacher, I'm going to say, okay. For those of us that are working full time and are now being asked to be homeschoolers and our children's best friends and our children's play dates and our children's entertainment committees, we do the best we can. And again, we put our own oxygen mask on first. So if you're working full time and at the end of the day, you're supposed to go to work teaching about the Chinese government or French or what have you, maybe you do 10 minutes or 5 minutes if you can. But if you have a child who is old enough to work it, the way the school systems are now asking us to do it is to give them the reins. So I'm going with that, and I'm going with the fact that, you know, an 11th grader and a 3rd grader may have a week or two lapse in their A-level education. But we're all in this together, and there isn't room for all of it. That's the truth. So you do the best you can. You do the best you can. When they're 8, yeah, when they're 8, if they don't get it, they'll get what they get. And guess what? They'll learn it next year too, right? When we're back in the classroom, or God willing, they'll learn it in May or June. Good. Okay, here. Oh, thank you for the response. It said that means a lot. I've also communicated with my supervisor to be more flexible. Good. I realize that people may be confused as to why I'm asking for more flexible, but I have faith that we are all in this. absolutely, we're all in this together. I've spoken with principals and teachers, and everyone understands that we are not geography teachers, right? We have other jobs. And now we've been assigned, best friends for our children as well, and babysitters, and, all the people that we farm our children out. Monday morning came and I had this feeling, oh, it's Monday morning. And then it's like, oh no, it's Monday morning, right? Oh no, it's the same as Sunday, as Saturday. So yes, we're all in this. All the people, the village that we rely on to raise our children, guess what? That's us right now. So we've got to have a laugh. We've got to keep our sense of humor. We need it. We need it right now as part of our patience and lovingness. But you do the best you can. And if your supervisor can offer you some time to be a third grade teacher, fantastic. And if they can't, then she or he will pick it up when they pick it up. Let's see here. So if I have a private question, I will answer that. I'm not really sure how to answer a private question. To the private questions, perhaps you can email me directly. That's the only way I know how to do that, which is NC, like my initials, at nancycolier.com. And it's 1L. COLIER.com. I see your question, but I want to be mindful of not answering it on the chat line, and also not here in our shared space. So for the person asking that, you can email me at nc@nancycolier.com. But parenting is hard enough in good times. And I actually just wrote a piece for Psychology Today I write a lot on a website for Psychology Today just about parenting during this time, parenting in a pandemic, right? Staying strong because we have to, staying calm because we have to. And again, reminding ourselves that how we walk through this right now is like a seed we're planting in our children. This is the seed they will then grow into their own resilience, to their own ground, to their own, it's okay to not be okay, right? We can be okay when it's not okay. If we're okay, our children will be okay. If we're anxious and unraveling, that's how our children will be. But this is a lesson for later on. And such a time for us to show ourselves who we can be, that we can act with kindness. And if we can't, then we need to lock ourselves in the bedroom and be anxious for a bit, or pound something, or whatever it might be. That's okay. That's a part of being strong, but not taking it out on those around us. What an opportunity to practice. In adversity, we have this opportunity to be our best. And that includes being our best parents, which includes taking time away from our children. I'm glad you're laughing. If we cannot stop laughing, right? Please find the humor. And I will say there are many funny, we can have humor next to heartbreak, right? It's and not but, right? It's not, oh, how can we send around a funny meme in the midst of people dying? It's always both. That's what life is. It's both. So our heart stays open to the incredible suffering that's going on, of loss of jobs, of loss of life, of all sorts of things. And there's humor, and there's the best of humanity, right? They coexist. And this is such an opportunity to remember that. So don't turn away from the joy and the laughter and the insanity of all of this that we're going through together, because it also includes such loss and such sadness. So let's see, I think we maybe have time for one more question. Yes, the dualities of life. Yes, well said. Well said. This is a time to recognize both of that. Love, patience, kindness, strength, and also unknown and uncertainty, and having to stay fiercely right now. All I have to manage is right now. I don't have to think about 3 weeks in the future and how on earth I will do that, how we will get through that. I don't. That's a what if. Come back to now. In this moment, under all of the fear thoughts about the future, there is a place that's okay. We all have it. We all have it. So I think I'll end there. And we can all just take together a collective deep breath, knowing that we are all in this together. And we all want to be of service. We all want to be good. We all want to be kind. And we can lean on each other. If the other is feeling weak, we rise up. If we're feeling weak, then the other rises up. This is what we do. This is what we do. This is the time for the best of us as human beings. So I'm going to close there. And I wish you all well-being. If anyone wants to reach me privately, it's nc@nancycolier.com. Be well.